And it's really nice to see you once again. Tell me, why is Time to Talk Day important for you?
Good morning, Sally, and thank you for inviting me again to have a lovely chat with you. It's always important that you and I catch up because it's so lovely. You do brighten my day.
You
It's
do.
really nice to get together and talk about why it's important to talk. And I'm just going to go straight in there because we actually had to cancel our or postpone our catch up last week because I had this thick headache and I just couldn't think properly and I hadn't slept well. And it just reminded me as the days went on and I reflected on why I had that headache and why I was not sleeping well, that it came to me, okay, this very strong link between these physical symptoms that we get and our mental health and where we are sort of mentally or stress wise, if you want to call it stress, the tension that builds up during the week as tasks build up or, life happens, the ups and downs of everyday life, we get a bit stressed, a bit tense, and then the physical symptoms start to come out. And if we don't recognize them and address them, then these slight headaches or a bit of a sore throat, they start to build up and build up. And before we know it, we've got chronic disease. So I'm just going to go straight in there and say that because the links between our mental health and our physical health are just so strong.
Mm.
And it's important that we do talk about these things when they happen and not let them build up and end up in a much worse state. So apologies for postponing last week, but that headache was clearly a warning sign to me that something was on my mind that needed to be discussed, addressed. And first chance I realised that, I had a really good chat with a friend and recognised what was going on with me. And suddenly all of that tension started to sort of dissipate.
Mm.
And obviously the headache went away and the other symptoms that came up, like a bit of toothache. And I was thinking, why am I getting toothache there? I haven't got any problems there.
Yeah.
This build up and build up. And then, and in the end, got it all out in the open, addressed the tension, addressed why the stress was building up, and had a really good night's sleep last night. And you could tell this morning I was smiling and a bit happier and, a bit more relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah, good, amazing. And yeah, it's nice that we can have those honest conversations. Naturally, you kept apologize. I'm really sorry. And I was kind of like, no apologies are needed. It's the best thing that we can do is just take that time and slow down. And I think I said to you, I've actually had 3 nights of like bad sleep as well. So I was kind of not all that upset that we had to delay this from last week as well. And yeah, I think it is that awareness is so important, and Time to Talk Day is an opportunity for us to raise that awareness about mental health and how to have conversations because there can be a lot of nervousness, but also it isn't just about a once and done day. We all have mental health all of the time. So maybe this is the starting point for a lot of people, but how do we carry on that conversation as well? So what top tips can you give us, Anne, on how to start a mental health conversation with someone?
Well, in my experience, using the term mental health and mental health conversation normally doesn't go down well. It needs to be natural, it needs to be authentic, organic, and just a very open, honest conversation between friends. And it doesn't come straight away. It needs a little bit of build up. It needs a bit of rapport, needs trust to be there. And so, of course, being typically English, it's going to start with the weather. But it's a nice icebreaker, and it's good to see how people are because the weather does change us, the weather does make us feel differently, and it's always a good conversation starter. But in all seriousness, I think it is about just keeping it as natural as possible and thinking about the time and the place, thinking about what the other person might be about to go and do or where they've just come from, and just being conscious about your approach, really. And the rest really just comes naturally. It should be a natural conversation. If it's going to be a mental health conversation, then I think you're not going to get anywhere to start with.
Mhm.
So it's just those very light-hearted, easygoing conversations to start with, and then maybe just going a little bit deeper, making sure the person feels comfortable, that you're not going to be disturbed, that there's privacy, because it's amazing how quickly the tears can flow, and you don't want that happening in the middle of a crowded office.
Mm.
So I think it's we just need to think about how we would feel if somebody was going to ask us
Mm.
how we're feeling at a difficult moment,
Mm.
and just be conscious of that and think about the other person and where they might be coming from or going to.
Mm.
So yeah, it does need the approach needs a little bit of thought and preparation.
For sure, I think that's 50% of the journey sometimes, isn't it? Because if somebody doesn't feel safe in that setting, they're probably never going to open up. And I think, like you say, this can be so casual. Like there's no such thing as a perfect conversation. It can be, how's it going at the moment? What we've been up to recently? And then you might start to get a sense from somebody about how they are feeling. We can pick up on body language cues. We can hear the words that they're saying. We can pick up on tone of voice as well. But I think if we are going in thinking this is a big formal mental health conversation, actually we might stand in our own way because we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to have a perfect conversation, and there's no such thing at all. So yeah, I think just being yourself, being genuine, you can have some questions in your back pocket, like how's it going at the moment, or have you been feeling today? How have you found the day? Or, that was a pretty intense meeting this morning. How did you find it? And we can just do those check-ins with one another. Is there anything on your mind at the moment that you'd like to, talk about? Again, it's giving people permission, but they don't have to share anything that they don't want to. And then they can decide, well, what's important to share right now? I can share a bit of that. I don't want to tell them about that. Maybe I could touch on that. But just keeping it really informal and friendly and casual, I think that's the best thing we can do. And if we're genuinely interested, we'll just have a natural conversation. I think that can play out really helpfully. So, reflecting on your lived experience, Anne, can you tell us about a moment when talking really supported your mental health?
Yes. Well, again, linking it to our physical symptoms, it's taken me many years to realize this, but I can now read my symptoms and I know when I'm stressed. Even when I don't know the underlying cause of the stress, I can tell from how my body feels. And I know that if I reach out to a particular friend, that he's going to be the one that sort of calms me down. But also now I have a new set of friends since moving. And one of them is particularly in touch with the sort of emotional side of our health and how a lot of our health issues start from emotional distress. And it wasn't even a conversation, a verbal conversation, it was actually a WhatsApp chat conversation. I found that to be really helpful.
Mm.
It gave me a chance to think more deeply about what was going on with me. And then it gave her time to consider her responses to me. And sometimes we would send each other an audio message, which is also really good because, again, it gives you time to think without being interrupted. And I like that. But when it comes to if I'm in quite a deep sort of state of panic or really stressed about something, then I have a particular friend who I call, and he knows me very well. He always does the right things. He just sort of asks me one open question, and then boom, everything will just come out. And yeah, it's really good to vent and just get these things off your chest. Do you find the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, reflecting on my lived experiences of what's helped me when I've either felt under the weather or when I was really poorly with my depression, is just been giving the time and space to air it, and somebody just giving you silence and not trying to fix it. And I think patience as well. I remember when I was really, really poorly with my depression, and my partner was massively supportive, and the amount of patience he showed was just really unbelievable because I would kind of expected judgment. Oh, for goodness sake, just get on with it. But he was just fully with me in it, and it was massively powerful. Just that the sense of relief that you get when somebody's just meeting you where you're at. They're not judging you, they're just giving you the space that you need, but also encouraging and being supportive as well. I think that's massively powerful when you're really, really poorly, but equally in those moments when you need to rant and you need to vent, just somebody giving you the space to do that has been massively powerful because you just feel so much better afterwards, don't you? So I think, drawing on those lived experiences, what's really helped talking for your mental health is just that person's response and how amazing that can be. If you reflect on your lived experiences, what hasn't helped you when you've tried to talk and why?
Oh, yeah. In a real moment of panic, it's not a good time for me to talk because I can't think straight. I can't think clearly. So I can't describe what's going on in my head. There's a lot of panic, obviously, but just not thinking straight, a lot of confusion. And you just sort of go into fight or flight, and the adrenaline's pumping. So it's not a good time for me to have a worthwhile conversation at that point. Just a lot of reassurance and love and care, and you're safe. It's fine. Just breathe, a bit of breathing. And the talking then comes later. And it might not come, later as in a few minutes later. It might be days later. It might need me a week to reflect and then go back and think, okay, what was going on with me at the time? Why did that happen?
I think that's really important, isn't it? Because we're all so different, and somebody may need that support now, but somebody else might need a day, 2 days, a few days reflection. Again, that's where I think, patience is important. But also we can't force people into conversations they're not ready for either, because that might not help them at all. When I reflect on my lived experiences, when I've tried to open up or talk, some people have kind of taken the conversation over. So when I was, living with depression, I shared that with somebody, and then I, spoke to them another time, and they said, "Oh, I just think I'm going the same way as you." It's really unhelpful, actually, saying that to somebody who's really, really poorly, because it's a diagnosable mental health condition, and making the conversation about yourself. And if you're having a bad day, that's very different to having depression. And I found that super, super unhelpful, that they just started to talk about themselves, and I didn't then have the space to, get what I needed, which maybe sounds selfish, but yeah, that was really difficult. At the time, I shared with a friend that I'd been diagnosed and I'd had a really tough year, and I'd been prescribed medication, and their response was, well, you should only take medication when it's serious, And I was just like, well, that's not very helpful and reassuring and validating, actually. In other situation, when I got back to work, somebody just said to me, an associate director said to me, "So are you fixed now?" And I'd had like 2 weeks off, and I was just like, it's not a matter of being fixed or not. So I found that really unhelpful. But then manager in the same team saw me and said, "Oh, Sally, I just want to give you a hug." And it just made me so emotional. I said, "Don't be nice to me. Don't be nice to me, because I'm going to cry." And they're like, okay, it's horrible to see you back at work. So it was really, really such an emotional time. And then I had somebody else in a different scenario say to me, "You know what you should do? You should go and get acupuncture and take St. John's wort." And I was like, should I now? As soon as somebody says you should, my brain goes, nope, that's the last thing I'm going to do. And people don't want unsolicited advice. People don't want to be fixed or the problem to be solved, not in my experience anyway. Again, that's not what people are asking for when they're talking about how they're feeling. You can't fix a person's feelings. It's just not possible. The best thing we can do is listen. So I had loads of kind of unhelpful conversations and experiences that just made me either feel a million times worse, or I just felt, you don't understand me, or you don't get me, you've not been curious, you've not taken the time. And that's massively unhelpful, because then you're less likely to open up and talk about it as well.
Sally, if somebody does open up to you and you get a sense that, okay, this person needs to talk, how do you respond if you're not prepared or you don't feel like it's the right moment to have this conversation?
If we're not ready for the conversation here and now, but you get the sense that there's something on their mind, we might have to park that conversation, just because if we're not in a place ourselves where we're ready to have it, we're probably going to do a disservice to that person. So even if it, wait, can we just hold for 10 minutes? I've just got to get through some stuff, and then, in 10 minutes time, I can be yours for half an hour. I think that's a really good thing to do to protect yourself and in turn them. Because what that means is, if you're in a position to have that conversation, you're able to listen to them fully and intently. And that's what these conversations are about, is about listening to people, not interrupting them, allowing for silence, just showing that person that you are there for them. And so responding appropriately, again, isn't about saying or doing the right thing. It's just about listening non-judgmentally and not interrupting, and giving people the time and space. And there's a lot around small phrases that we can say as well that can reassure and validate people. So something small like, "Is it any wonder you're feeling so overwhelmed at the moment? It sounds like you're dealing with a lot. So actually, I think anybody in your position right now would be feeling the way that you're feeling. So I totally get it. It's totally understandable that you're feeling this way." Or, it could be even short, that sounds really tough. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that at the moment. So those small phrases can be massively reassuring and validating and can give a sense of relief for that person as well. So I think those would be my biggest things: is listen without interrupting, be non-judgmental, and just give that person the time and space. Again, you're not meant to fix it. You're not the problem solver. You're not the mental health expert. And sometimes we put ourselves under that pressure to know what the answer is when you don't have to know what the answer is. What are your thoughts in terms of how to respond appropriately if somebody does share something with you unexpectedly?
Well, for me, as a manager, it was always during a one-to-one with a member of staff, and you could see them getting a bit overwhelmed and perhaps getting a bit teary. And I found that just saying, look, let's just park all of this. I'm going to meet you downstairs in the lobby in 10 minutes. Go and grab a cup of tea, grab your pass, grab your phone, whatever you need to do, go to the loo. I'll meet you down there in 10 minutes. And we would go outside for a walk. And I always found that that was hugely helpful, because it's really the pressure and the stress of being in that office space sometimes when it's work related. If they're overwhelmed with workload, with deadlines, just getting out and having a bit of fresh air and walking side by side was the best thing, because having those conversations in a meeting room, it's just very awkward, especially when it's just the two of you. So that was always a good thing that I found in the workplace anyway.
Yeah, it feels more casual, more informal, more neutral. So again, it probably creates that safety for people opening up and talking more about what's going on. I think we have to fight the natural human instinct to fix. Sometimes we do try to fix, but also we compare people's situations to others. So at least you don't have it as bad as. That's not support. It's not reassurance. It's not validation. So if we're at leasting people, yeah, it's definitely not the place to be. It's definitely not the thing to do when somebody's trying to offload what's stressful for them. And in reality, yes, at least it's not as bad as the, starving children in Africa. Well, yes, but this is all relative, and this is relative to me in my life. And actually, comparison isn't support. So you mentioned before that sometimes it takes a few days for you to actually reflect and be ready to open up about things. So if somebody does try to start a conversation with you, like immediately or in that moment, how do you make sure your needs are met when you know internally, I'm not going to want to talk about this for a few days?
It's about learning, like getting to know yourself really well, really deeply. And if you've been living with this kind of anxiety or stress for a long time, if you want to make your life easier and if you want to get better, you do have to go inwards and really understand why you react the way you do, and when you are good in conversations and not good having conversations. And so it's taken me a long time to get to this stage, and I'm certainly not perfect. But, I could get snappy, for instance, or I might just not say the right thing. And again, it's just because of all the internal stuff going on. But I am getting better at recognizing, I'm not in a good place right now to have this conversation, and maybe just say it to my friend or my husband or whoever's asking. I can see you're not okay. Are you okay? Kind of question. And it's just about sort of responding calmly and just saying, I will be all right. I'm not okay at the moment, but it's not a good day for me to talk about it. I'll come and talk to you about it when I'm ready. And normally the people that know me are pretty good at recognizing that, and they don't take offense. Whereas sometimes we do take offense, don't we? If we see somebody struggling, we want to help them, we want to try and fix them, but they're not opening up. It could frustrate us a little bit. Do you find that?
Yeah, I think protecting your personal boundaries is so important, because if you're not ready for a conversation, again, you can't be forced into a conversation, and you are probably going to feel snappy and irritable and just leave me alone, now is not the time or place. So we do, again, have to respect people for where they're at. We can't expect people to immediately pour their hearts out to us, but we can give them the option if that is what they need in that moment. Boundaries also applies to the supporters as well, that, we can be there for people, but if you're supporting, I don't know, somebody at work, and you're meeting regularly and you find yourself, you're going around in circles, having the same conversations over and over, that sounds a little bit like therapy. And we're not therapists. We're not, counsellors. We're not meant to be mental health experts. The talking bit and the listening bit, that's the bridge between somebody and then somebody getting the help that they need. And if it is going on for an extended period of time, how we can start making connections with outside organisations if you're recognising actually this has been going on for a while, they've been trying and testing different things to improve, but nothing's really changing. It sounds like it's getting pretty serious. Well, maybe that's when we do start signposting to professional organisations as well. What's one thing you wish everyone knew about mental health conversations?
It's one of the most special gifts you can give somebody. Sit with them and just give them that space to open up, gather their thoughts, and just verbalize what's going on in their heads and not interrupt. It's a beautiful thing. And it makes me feel great when somebody just sits and listens and doesn't interrupt me. And I try to do the same for others. And it's really my top tip for mental health conversations is if you're the person supporting someone, you really shouldn't be saying much. Maybe a couple of open-ended questions to start with, and then just sit back and let them open up.
I'd agree with that. It is a gift because actually somebody sharing with you, they're letting you into their world. And so being on the receiving end of that as well is actually, it's an honour. One thing I wish people knew about mental health conversations is an imperfect conversation is better than no conversation. So let's just trust ourselves. Let's connect with others. Let's have natural chats with people. Let's not dress it up as a mental health conversation. Let's just be human. What if I don't know what to say? What if I don't know what to do? Doesn't matter. You don't have to know.